Good evening. 7 o'clock. Welcome to Ealing Planning Committee on the 15th of January 2025. I've got to get used to saying that now. Okay, we have 4 items tonight on the agenda. I'm planning to take Gurnell as it is first. Then I'm going to take Oriel Drive. Then I'm going to take Derby Road, and then I'm going to take the Green Southall in that order tonight. Let's go through the agenda, shall we? So, okay, any apologies for absence? No, I don't think so. I've got 2 substitutions, Councillor Sahota for Councillor Khan and Councillor Steed for Councillor Ball. Any urgent matters? I'm not aware of any. Right, okay, let's move on. Any declarations of interest? Nope, okay, let's move on. I'm not aware of any matters to be considered in private. If you have any, please let me know now. No. Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of November 2024. Obviously, everyone's read them. That was at the meeting. Are they agreed? Thank you. Site visit attendance. Right, let me refer to my notes. Okay. I was there, Councillor Martin was there, Councillor Sahota as a substitute for Councillor Khan was there, Councillor Coley was there, Councillor Mahmood was there, Councillor Kelly was there, Councillor Raza, apologies, Councillor Hamidi was there, Councillor Wall was there, Councillor Shaw was there, Councillor Rice was there, Councillor Young was there, and I'm sure there was apologies from Councillor Steed. Thank you. Right, back to the agenda. Right, as I said, we're going to take planning application Gurnell Leisure Centre first on the agenda tonight. So who's doing this one? Olivier. So if you'd like to introduce it, Olivier, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to bring to your attention the briefing notes which detailed about amendments to the recommendation, namely condition 2 revised drawing numbers, condition 24 about electric vehicle charging provision, as well as further representation from Sport England, which was with regard to conditions 58 and 59 and the particular wording of those, as well as 2 additional public consultation responses which have been responded to within the briefing note, and also responses were in the original report which was published. And then there are a few clarifications on 4 different pages, namely 14, 49, 50 and 81. And so we're here to discuss the scheme at Gurnell, which is for a replacement leisure centre, improvement of parkland and an outline for up to 300 homes. The scheme has been consulted with the GLA, and the Stage 1 report detailed that a replacement leisure centre is supported in principle, subject to demonstrating very special circumstances within the metropolitan open land, minimising harm arising from the application and strengthening public benefits of the scheme. As this is a council scheme on public land, it would be required to meet 50% affordable, but this was not possible to follow the fast track route, so the scheme was viability tested by DVS. And this showed that the scheme could provide 35% affordable housing with a split of 65% social and 35% intermediate. The GLA response also looked at design and heritage. The design of the scheme was supported. In terms of layouts, a design code was considered imperative, as well as parameter plans for the residential reserve matter stage. Play space should be shown on the site, and it was also recommended that the site should provide public toilets, free drinking water, accessible housing, and also accessible parking. With regard to transport, trip generation at the time was considered needed to be further discussed, and how the proposal would impact the nearby bus and rail network. These elements have been discussed and they are reviewed upon within the report. Another note which was mentioned since the publication of the report was about the late publication of the independent viability report. This, as mentioned, was assessed by DVS and has been made public on the council website. Just with regard to the council's tall building policy D9, it was formerly at Reg 18, Reg 19, and is now at Reg 22 with the Planning Inspectorate, and this has substantial weight. The application is for enabling development, which would be residential, which falls primarily within the allocation for up to 6 stories. Two taller elements are proposed at this outline stage of up to 10 stories. It should be noted that the scheme has been the subject of a townscape and visual impact assessment. And so the application was first submitted using the original land ownership boundary, a revision to the application to show the red line, and this is the application boundary now, and this also follows the site allocation. This is just to show the proposed development and where the existing leisure centre is to be demolished, and that's etched in red. The site has constraints. It's within metropolitan open land and public open space. The River Brent runs along the north and western boundaries and forms part of the Blue Ribbon Network. And the site is designated as a site of importance for nature conservation. Here you can see the site allocation, and it details about what is considered to be acceptable for a proposed use. So this should be a leisure-led scheme encompassing both indoor and outdoor facilities with enabling residential use. It makes reference to the previous application, the public transport accessibility of 2 to 3. It also mentions about tall buildings and the height of up to 6 stories. Also, you can see about the flood zone in flood zone 2, 3A and 3B, and flood zone 3A of surface water. And this mentions an indicative timeframe for delivery of between 1 to 10 years. Here you can see the proposed development, and this hybrid application forms 3 parts. Part A is a replacement leisure centre, which is a full application, and Part B is a parkland improvements, which is also part of the full application. To bring to your attention, Part C is an illustrative residential development of up to 300 homes, which would be located here. And this would be on the mainly on the existing car parking space for the current Gunnell Leisure Centre, and then there'll be some encroachment onto the MOL. The enabling residential development is considered necessary to fund the replacement leisure centre and recreational facilities. The enabling development will be of an optimal scale, which is considered necessary to mitigate the adverse impacts when delivering the leisure centre. The scheme and the report is able to demonstrate very special circumstances. Here is just a slide detailing about existing proposed development footprints, and the increase in building footprint, and in terms of the heights, that is the AOD from sea level, which is mentioned at the bottom here. So that's why it would appear that the heights are higher, where 52.8 meters is mentioned. But just to make you aware, the leisure centre would have a maximum height of 16.5 meters, and the residential element would have a height of 34. So this is just a breakdown of the floor spaces of what is to be proposed. So yet the leisure centre has a 50-metre 10-lane swimming pool, which is Olympic sized, and is a replacement of the existing 50-metre 6-lane swimming pool. As well as this, there would be gym facilities, fitness facilities. An addition would be a learner pool, as well as fun slide pools as well. There would be spectators at first floor level, and I will show later on. So with regard to the scheme, there's been 419 public comment received, 310 objections and 101 in support. Many of the responses are from within the London Borough of Ealing, and the main concerns which were raised are to do with the height of the proposed development, the effect on ecology, overdevelopment, design, impact on the existing community facilities, potential traffic impacts, and residential amenity impacts on neighbouring properties. As with all major schemes, there's been a lot of discussions with regard to design, and the application has been to design and community review panels, as well as been referred to the GLA. This is a requirement of the NPPF, and this slide details about when the scheme first came in at DRP, which are stakeholders who have an interest in design within the locality, and then community review panel, which is a panel made up of members of Ealing who give up, members of the public of Ealing who give up their time to review schemes as well at an early stage. And throughout the scheme, the design has been changed. What was considered key, especially at DRP, was the creation of design codes, and then also how the leisure centre was designed. Concerns were raised with regard to coach drop-offs, especially due to the existing situation with Ruislip Road East, and this has been agreed to be moved to Stockdove Way for a waiting area. Here is just detailing again just about the existing facilities and the proposed. Would now be the addition of a cafe, clip and climb, soft play, creche facilities. The existing number of car parking spaces is largely the same, with an increase in more sustainable travel such as cycling, with 120 spaces proposed. Here's just the ground floor of the leisure centre. So that just details there would be 2 studios to the north of the site, with 2 meeting rooms close by, a learner pool just here, and then changing facilities, the large 50-metre swimming pool here with the 10 lanes, and then the water park with slides facilities there.
Forgive me, Jack. Can I just go and get some water? The only thing is, if I leave and you still continue, I won't be able to.
If you can park it for
thank you.
2 minutes. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'm glad you made it known that you wanted to do that. Yeah, it's fine. No, just wait. Otherwise you can't vote. You carry on talking. Or well, you can take part, but you can't vote. Carry on, sorry.
This just details a lower ground floor level with the tanks for the swimming pools, as well as undercroft parking in this location here. And then here you can see the external parking. At first floor level would be the fitness suite and gym, with the spectator seating here looking onto the proposed swimming pool. And then there's just some additional gym rooms. These are just some elevations taken from the application, just showing the different elevations from different angles. And what's highlighted here is that the leisure centre will be finished with a green roof. And then here are just viewpoints when looking into the site. And then you can see when standing on Ruislip Road East and showing footpaths, cycle paths, and then a gentle slope up to the leisure centre. So at the site visit, we noticed there were some surrounding buildings of residential nature, namely across the road, and these are up to 5 stories predominantly on Ruislip Road East. And then just a bit further away on Gunnell Grove are the buildings of Dunlin House, Falcon House and Kestrel House, which are 11 stories and approximately 29 metres high. I think it's good to just also mention about Reg 19 and when the Mayor responded, and then the use of appropriate instead of maximum should be used. The proposed building height is considered to be commensurate with the indicative building height in the immediate surrounding area, with the site allocation for up to 6 stories. As mentioned, 2 taller elements are proposed. The rationale for the increased height is to not further extend onto the undeveloped parts of the MOL and to reduce the building's footprint. So with regard to flood mitigation, as mentioned, the site is in flood zone 2 and flood zone 3. The yearly chance of flooding from the River Brent is considered low. The yearly chance of surface water flooding is very low, and the risk of flooding from groundwater is low. The scheme, in terms of mitigation, proposes attenuation channels from the leisure centre to a basin in the parkland area, the creation of seasonally wet and dry habitats, and an overland flow path which channels surface water from off-site areas to the east into the River Brent. Just to note that the site has not been majorly flooded since the late 70s. With regard to biodiversity net gain, the application proposes a 30-year strategy, which would have a 30-year monitoring plan. The post-development habitat map shows an increase in habitat value of the existing grassland, new habitats, the green roof to the leisure centre, and urban tree planting cover. In summary, the assessment indicates that the scheme would provide a biodiversity net gain of 16.21%, which exceeds the statutory requirement of 10%. Just to go through the parkland improvements, which is a key part of the scheme, there would be improved outdoor landscape facilities, a new playground, skate park, BMX track, trim trail and distance marker routes, and a new pedestrian footbridge over the River Brent. So the outline element of the scheme details about residential of up to 300 homes, and this would have be formed of 4 blocks, as you can see here, with 2 taller elements of up to 10 stories in these locations. And the illustrative housing mix is 33% would be 1 bed, 58% would be 2 bed, and 9% would be 3 bed. As mentioned about car parking provision, 150 car parking spaces would be provided. The aspiration is for 20% of all parking spaces to have electric vehicle active charging points and all the others to be passive. 30 accessible car parking spaces would be provided for the residential element, and this would be further discussed subject to the reserved matters and the conditions for car parking design and the management plan. With regard to the swimming pool, it's likely that there will be schools who could attend, as well as galas and events. So coach drop-off would be at the front of the site, and then they'd be able to make their way round Argyle Road to wait on Stockbove. And this area is already hard standing and forms part of the overall site. The scheme would also allow for transport improvements, such as the resurfacing of Rysup Road East, nearby junction improvements, traffic calming on residential streets, new crossings, Toucan and Copenhagen style, cycle connection improvements, and this location here shows a bit more clearly the new footbridge over the River Brent. So it impacts the surrounding neighbours. The illustrative residential development is at least 16 metres away from the closest neighbouring dwelling at 24, Peel Gardens, and it is more than 21 metres away from property at number 27. And it has been designed not to have windows on the flank elevations, and it is noted that there are flank elevation windows at this property here, but they are to non-habitable rooms. And this is just an indicative build programme. So we're here today at Planning Committee. Were this application to be successful following its referral to the GLA for stage 2, site preparation would be mid to late 2025. Autumn 2025 would be the commencement of the leisure centre construction. The contract for the residential element would commence next year, January, and then the fit out and completion of the leisure centre at this indicative stage would be autumn 2027. So overall, the scheme, there is a need to replace the leisure centre and enhance the wider open space. The scheme has demonstrated very special circumstances and provides new leisure and sport facilities, as well as additional outdoor facilities. It proposes MOL enhancements and flood mitigation measures. The Leisure Centre would provide an improved 50-metre, 10-lane swimming pool. It would double the amount of gym fitness space and increase the number of meeting rooms, have a creche, soft play, and the future operator would participate in the active programme for the borough. The scheme would have a biodiversity net gain score of over 16%. It would go some way to meeting the new NPPF target of 3,132 homes per year. The proposed homes would provide 35% affordable by habitable room with a 65-35 split, which is in the middle of the existing policy recommendation as well as the proposed. The scheme would be a car-free residential development with re-provision of parking for the leisure centre, and it's considered the site would maintain good access to public transport. The scheme would provide over £2.8 million in contributions that can be reinvested into the local area and community by the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Okay, so we have two people who have registered to speak. The objector is Mr. Eric Leach. You have 3 minutes, Eric, if you want to come up to the microphone and just make sure it works for you before we start. You may know that I will let you know at 30 seconds out, 30 seconds to go, and I will do that for every speaker. So 3 minutes will be your deadline.
Okay, good evening.
Right, okay.
Can you hear everybody? Yeah. Yeah, my name is Eric Leach. I'm Vice Chair of West Ealing Neighbours, which is a 20-year-old residents group, and I'm speaking on behalf of West Ealing Neighbours. On the 8th of August 2024, the Government's Valuation Office issued a private DVS viability review on Savills FBA on the application. LBE's committee report states that the DVS report is summarised on page 56. It quite clearly is not. What your report does not say is that in total, the government's DVS report says 12 times that the application is unviable. Financial viability is a crucial element for new developments on public land. We find it deplorable that this review was only inserted into the application's document set just 48 hours ago, over 5 months after it was written. It's just not good enough. Looking at the GLA Stage 1 report, it states in paragraph 28, it is noticed that the proposed building footprint and heights over the site would be significantly higher than existing, which would cause considerable harm to openness of the mall in terms of special impacts. At paragraph 46, it points out that the LBA Regulation 22 local plan does not designate the site as being for tall buildings, yet all the buildings in the scheme substantially exceed the tall building threshold for the area of 21 metres. The leisure centre is 34 metres and the residential tower up to 52.8 metres. Demolishing and replacing a 48-year-old building leads to double carbon emissions. There is every reason why the centre could have been repaired in early 21 after the end of the COVID pandemic. The 2022 Gurnall public consultation on the new leisure centre was very clear. Providing a swimming pool completely dominated the public responses. To build this 50-metre pool is vitally important as it will be the only Olympic-sized competition pool in West London. What is needed is a new pool, not an expensive leisure centre catering for 8 different indoor sports and leisure services. Only 35% of the homes will be affordable. Current planning guidelines state that on public land there should be 50%. The resident development is in the River Brent floodplain. Floodplain storage will be reduced. Renters and purchasers of the new homes,
30 seconds.
Thank you, might find it expensive or impossible to insure their homes. Tower block flat residents will be able to look directly into the living space of residents in Peel Gardens. These residents will also suffer from lack of sunlight. The new NPPF states that on the mall, it is to be refused unless it's very special circumstances. This is remote, given that we're building very large residential blocks in a location without a major transport hub, a GP surgery or shops.
Thank you.
Are we done?
We're done, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And on behalf of the applicant, Chris Bunting. Chris, I'm sure you know how to work these speakers, microphones, shall I say. And again, I will, at 30 seconds out, I will let you know. And we'll finish at 3 minutes. Thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors, Planning Committee. I'm Chris Bunting, Assistant Director for Leisure at Ealing Council, and I'm here to speak in support of the application. We are very excited about the Gurnell Leisure Centre project, which has provided an opportunity to master plan the whole site, interweaving the new leisure centre, wider parkland and residential uses together in a comprehensive and sensitively designed master plan. The existing leisure centre has been closed for too long, and this planning application is fundamental to bringing back those leisure users back to Gurnell, creating a state-of-the-art facility with bigger and better facilities. Minimising the impacts on the MOL has been at the forefront of the design and master planning process. A core design concept is to bring the character of the MOL and parkland to the Ruislip Road edge, improving views, accessibility into and throughout the parkland. The new Gurnell Leisure Centre will provide a facility for all ages of the community and respond to their needs. It will replace the current 6-lane 50-metre pool with a new 10-lane 50-metre pool and provide additional facilities including a teaching pool, significant fitness areas, a cafe, soft play, community rooms and a state-of-the-art and exciting and innovative family-focused water park, rare in West London and London. The building design concept is to become part of the fabric of the landscape as if pulled from the ground and integrated into the park setting. There is a clear ambition to create a leisure centre sympathetic to its surroundings and to become part of the park. The design incorporates key building strategies that will help reduce the building's whole life carbon, including thermal zoning, reduced digging, reuse of existing cladding, and a hybrid timber and steel structure strategy. The building design has been developed with extensive user and stakeholder engagement, flexibly designed spaces and a simple wayfinding strategy. The facility aims to meet the current and future needs of the local community, helping to realise their sporting ambition or purely to have fun while seeking to get fitter. The proposals only enhance open spaces around the new buildings and include mixed tenure housing with a significant proportion of affordable housing alongside the new
30 seconds.
centre. About 300 homes will be provided predominantly on the existing car park facing Ruislip Road East. The planning application secures at least 35% affordable housing as stated. The tenure blind design principles, shared courtyards and play spaces mean all residents have access to the same amenities. The outline application for the residential with a comprehensive design code and parameter plans will help control the quality of the development for any future developer of the site. Housing is provided
Thank you very much.
as an enabling development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate both of you sticking to 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay. There's a lot there. Okay, right. Olivia, did you want to come back on anything from both the applicant or the objector said there?
Yes, yeah, just to note about the viability, yeah, with regard to what was stated by DVS, it essentially said that although the scheme is not considered to be viable, in order to create a scheme that would be viable would be to increase density, and that would be namely to increase the height of the scheme, which is not something which we would readily recommend, which is why the offer of 35% was considered acceptable. The GLA have been made aware of this, and this would have to go back at stage 2 if successful tonight. With regard to Reg 2022 and not designated for a tall building, it does mention up to 6 stories, and the heights which were mentioned were the datum heights, the AOD heights of 34 meters. The leisure centre would have a height of 16.5 meters, with the residential, the tallest element, having a proposed height of 34.5. So with respect of that, that would be taller than the designation, but The reason for that is rather than to increase the footprint onto the MOL, it was considered acceptable, and the report details why the height at 10 stories is considered acceptable. And then with regard to the floodplain and the impact on the proposed residential, it should be noted that there is residential at Peel Gardens, which was built in the 80s, and this development already shows that residential can be possible in close proximity to the River Brent. The application also has acceptable conditions which look at flood mitigation measures and ensures that the building design is acceptable within this location. There are conditions also with regard to the circular economy and the reuse of building materials from the existing leisure centre, as well as ensuring that the buildings are energy efficient. The leisure centre firstly, which is the main scheme we're looking at, and then also conditions for the residential, and those would also be part of a reserved matters application.
Thank you, Olivia. So I'm going to throw it open to questions as normal to the committee. Please keep your hands up. And I've seen Councillor Rice is first, so carry on, Councillor Rice, while others indicate or not. And can you please get all your questions out at once rather than keep coming back? I'm sure you've prepared and you've got your questions. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, we'll speak about the flooding. Now, I was on the planning committee when this was looked at last time and the previous application. And one point I did raise is that I wanted to know how often that Gurnell Park floods. I don't think I was really given the kind of fully satisfactory answer that I was really looking for at that time. And I did, and actually end up, to use a pun, a flood of emails from residents coming to me, actually talking to me about flooding. And there was one resident who'd lived there for about 50 years who said that there was flooding pretty much every year. And it was just really quite a serious issue where he's seen the entire Gurnell car park flooded to approximately 30 to 50 centimetres. However, I then emailed someone else who's lived in the area about 50 years. And
Councillor Rice, is this a question?
Yes,
Sorry.
it is. Yes, I'm just trying to explain where I'm coming from. Yes, because then there's also someone else got it. I spoke to someone else about this, and it said that there'd been no flooding there since 1990. So I'm just hoping to actually get some kind of a clear answer as to how serious the flooding risk is. I know it's mentioned there about that it's supposed to be kind of a low risk, but I was wondering just how frequently there is flooding in the area. And also the other point that I had be about the GLA. Looking at page 11 of the report there, it just seems to suggest that previously in the previous application, the GLA just seemed to find that there was issues with the application. But of course now we find that the GLA it seems to be happy with the application from what we try and summarise what the points been made there. So I'm just really wondering why it is the GLA had an issue before, but now everything is fine. I think probably I'm looking at things such as the Metropolitan Open Land and trying to understand these issues. And the other issue I've got really is about parking, because I'm just wondering about how we ensure that the parking is kept, the parking that we do provide is kept for those actual users of the leisure centre. Because my thoughts are that I think parking is going to be important to people, because I think people are bringing families in from long distances and we're not close to a tube station. So I'm just wondering, how do we make sure that the car parking is properly managed so that it's only there for the users of the centre, and certainly not for perhaps residents in the housing who might not be allowed to actually have a car park of their own. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll take those three questions first, because if I take too many questions, we might get we might forget or not attend to them properly. So Olivier, sorry. There's three questions there.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. So the last question with regard to parking, and the scheme would require a car parking management plan. The residential element would be car free. That would be as part of the Section 106 agreements. Similar to the existing leisure centre, there would be car parking spaces, and those would be expected to be used by leisure centre users and also people using the park and the open land there as well. With regard to the GLA Stage 1 response, I guess it does differ from the original one. I think you mentioned about being happier. The GLA still said they had concerns with regard. They agree with the principle of development with respect of the replacement leisure centre, and do understand that in order to have a replacement leisure centre, there would need to be enabling development. What the GLA required was for the scheme to show the very special circumstances, which the report considers the scheme does do. And that's why the GLA said that, subject to demonstrating the very special circumstances and the key benefits of the proposal, that it could be considered acceptable. So I guess the test is here, the report that's been written, and then it before yourselves to review that aspect. With regard to flooding, there hasn't been many 1 in 100 year flood events. And I think you mentioned about flooding up to, I think, 30 to 50 centimetres. So these are, they're not regular occurrences. As with any development in an urban context, there will be sometimes a level of surface water flooding, and that's due to sometimes harder and permeable paving. And then, so there's appropriate conditions on the scheme, and it has been reviewed by our lead flood authority officer as well, and has considered conditions for this and having potential residential on the site, as well as having wet habitats as well to also soak up water. And the scheme in terms of biodiversity net gain does propose habitats which can contain, I guess, excess water which could be provided at the site.
Okay, I've got Councillor Young, then Councillor Mahmood, and then Councillor Shaw have indicated so far.
Thank you. I've got 3 questions. First, the officer said that the scheme was necessary to fund the leisure centre. Can you explain to me in what way the scheme is funding the leisure centre in the light of the valuation report? That's the one that was published in August, but we've only just seen this week. The second question is on the parking, and following on from Councillor Rice's question. What is to stop the residents of the low car development from parking in neighbouring roads like Avalon Road, which is just across Ruislip Road from the scheme? And the third point is the flooding. I understand that the underground car park is designed to flood when there is a heavy rainfall. How often is that expected to happen?
Sorry. Okay. Olivier, you got this? As there are 3 questions, I'll take them all at once.
Thank you, Councillor Young. So I think the first point was with regard to the scheme, the replacement leisure centre, as well as the residential, considered necessary to fund the leisure centre. I guess in the context, the leisure centre, what was done was to see if it could be retained. And as well as that, an alternative sites investigation was done, and it was considered that it wasn't possible to retain the existing building because of its footprint in terms of energy. And as well as that, there are no other locations which could provide a similar leisure centre of the size proposed. I'm still going. Yeah. So then with respect of residential is needed to ensure that the leisure centre can happen. And that's because the leisure centre alone has a build cost, and then the residential, by selling properties, can also bring in and generate money for that. And within the NPPF, it does mention that you can have residential to enable development. So in this case, the residential is considered key, and it does follow part of the test of the NPPF to provide public subsidy housing on site.
Sorry, can I just come back on that first question, because the report...
You can come back on that first question.
Says quite
so
clearly,
I'll answer your question before you ask the question. Okay.
The report says quite clearly the proposed scheme is not viable. The scheme produces a deficit equivalent to the costs of redeveloping the leisure centre and master plan works. So it's not adding anything to the viability of the leisure centre scheme. It's not even adding.
So I guess what I previously said, with respect to the deficit, this can obviously be addressed by increasing the density of the site, which is not what we're considering to do. So that is why the development is proposed up to 300 homes. It's a significant decrease from the original one, which was close to 600. So yeah, so it has been viability tested. The scheme would also be able to be eligible for a grant to construct the housing as well.
Can you let the officer finish, please?
No, it does take that into account. So you'll be aware of other schemes where this does happen in terms of viability assessments. But I think what is key is that there is a potential for the grant. So like additional work is likely to happen for the reserve matters application as well.
Okay, the parking and the flooding.
And then with respect of the parking.
In Avalon Road as an example, across the road. That was your question, wasn't it?
The scheme and what's been agreed is a controlled parking zone review, and we'll also be looking at parking stress measures. So with that, we'll also be seeing a level of work produced to see where potential people could park by ensuring that the new residents are not able to gain car parking permits is considered to be important to reduce the impact on neighbouring properties. What is mentioned about Avalon Road, as with anything, it is difficult sometimes to prevent people, but that would be down to the council to manage that element. But with the scheme being car free, it's not considered that that would be detrimental to neighbouring streets. And with respect of that, it's also been to the TfL, who've also reviewed the scheme. And then the last bit was just about the underground car park. So that is formed at a lower ground level under the building, and there are some pool tanks which are there, which would allow for the movement of the water to go in there.
Talks about the car park flooding having to be drivers who have parked their cars there having to be warned to remove their cars from the underground parking space
If there's a risk of flooding.
if there's a risk of flooding.
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, that's the
How
question.
frequently are you expecting them to have to vacate the parking space?
So that would be part of any management of the car park. As mentioned, there will be a car park management plan, so we could detail in that, in the event of how many times it's likely to be, what would the procedure be?
I think we've already covered quite extensively answers on the low risk of flooding. So I think it's reasonable to capture that information in any management plan. But yeah, I think we've answered that. It's very infrequent, and it's really down to the interpretation of what we constitute is flooding, or whether it's surface water, etc.
And how that's mitigated. Okay, Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. There are two clarification and two quick question. One is in your recommendation of section 106 contribution, you mentioned junction improvements. There are a couple of junction around there. So is there any specific location of junction we are spending money? One. And second clarification is just now you mentioned Food Bridge over the River Brent. Is it which exactly location is, or have we decided the location, or we will be considering later on? Yeah,
It was on the screen earlier.
yeah. Anyway, and two quick question is, when you said the primary point of access to the whole site of pedestrian and vehicle will be from the Roslip Road East, so there will be no access for any vehicle or pedestrian from anywhere else. And the last question is that when you said the coaches will be parked nowhere on Roslip East, the coaches will be parked on Stockdove Way. Is there any specific location? Is a long road. This is in Perivale Road. Stockdove Way is a long road, so it is in the beginning, or they could park anywhere. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Olivia, there's 4 questions there. Okay, away you go.
Thank you. So first question with respect, Councillor Mahmood, about junction improvements. So those would be primarily, I guess, where Ruislip Road meets Argyle Road, and then also neighbouring areas within the site. And the footbridge, I've got that. So this is just an indicative location. If you can see, yeah, this is where the footbridge could be over the River Brent. And then just about parking. So yeah, access would be via Ruislip Road East. And then here you can see the external parking. And then also there's a vehicle entrance into the Undercroft car parking.
But pedestrians can access a host of places, can't they? Because part of it was
Yes.
not just cut vehicles, but pedestrians, and that's in the report where they can. There's walkways across the site
Throughout and next to the residential. And then also here you can see from the Ruislip Road East, there will be some disabled parking spaces in this location, and then the residential starts. Yeah, so here you can see also from Ruislip Road East and potential car parking spaces here.
and the coaches, Olivia. I think they're up by the athletic track
Yes.
on Stockdove Way.
So coach drop-off would be to the front of the new leisure centre, and then there would be coach parking and waiting here within Stockdove Way, and this is already existing hard standing, and as part of conditions for car parking management and coach parking, this would secure this location.
Okay, right. Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just very briefly, in terms of future-proofing, I noted the car parking 20% electric vehicle, which obviously is a good start. But bearing in mind the longevity of the centre should be longer than that. You know, are there any plans, or how easy would it be to extend this, given that we would expect more electric vehicles to be in use over the next sort of 20 to 30 years?
Right, hold that a second. Is there anyone else indicating to ask questions? Councillor Martin, just as there's only one there, so I'll take them in threes, or, well, it depends how many you've got, really.
Just got a question about the remaining metropolitan open land. And that, for example, there's a point in there that it talks about the housing, and it says there'll be amenity space outside. And that'll be on what it calls the existing playground. Not quite sure what the existing playground is at Gurnell, but is that green space still going to be within the public realm, or is that part of what's been lost from the metropolitan open land? Is my question. And then I sort of take, I think I take the point that what we're saying is, despite some reductions in that we've increased the biodiversity, and therefore we've kind of clawed back some of that. But I'd quite like to understand a little bit more how that is being achieved. If you can explain, or maybe Chris could.
Okay, that's three. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. So, yeah, as mentioned about the 20% electrical vehicle charging points, so those would be active, and then it would also be 80 passive. As per the London plan, I guess as we move forward, there is the potential by having passive to also make them active. So that would be what we would consider to be acceptable in the future. So I guess maybe at the reserve matters, that could also be looked at again.
Did you mean 80 as in a number, 80 or 80%?
80%, sorry.
Right, okay.
And thank you, Councillor Martin. So with respect of the open land and the green space for the residential. So that would be found within the public offer. In terms of that, the scheme would provide what we would usually ask for if it was to be private. So in terms of the percentages required for the indicative number of 295 to 300 homes. So what's been considered acceptable is to provide it on site within the wider public realm improvements. It's still public, yeah. And then, so the existing site in terms of biodiversity has predominantly grasslands which are of a lower value. The increase of biodiversity up to 16% introduces newer vegetation which in terms of biodiversity has higher scores in terms of the vegetation, the tree cover, and like the types of planting and how long they're likely to last for.
Mic's off, sorry. Okay, Councillor Raza and then Councillor Coley.
It's just to sort of add on to what you were asking about the biodiversity, actually. I just wanted to make sure that you have actually consulted with local wildlife groups and interested parties when you've done the biodiversity assessment, and whether we have an ecologist on board as well. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Coley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little bit concerned that we've got 300 units and it's a car-free parking development. Firstly, has an independent transport report been conducted to justify that? Secondly, what is the PTEL rating of the area? And thirdly, are we looking at any enhancement to the public transport facility around that area? Because it's reasonable, but not exceptionally good, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, that's one. So Councillor Steed, have you got many or you've just got the one? Okay, Councillor Steed.
Very well responsible. Does the council have a developer in mind, or a developer who's already expressed interest in the proposals?
I'm not sure that's relevant, but we can answer the question if that is answerable.
I'm just going back to the viability issues and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm not saying it's not relevant. I'm just saying I'm wondering if it is.
As to whether the development will actually ever get built, is what I mean.
Well, you could say that about any application that comes in front of us
yeah.
in this committee. Olivia?
Is it okay to answer Councillor Steed's question first?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll make his day, but yes.
There isn't a developer in mind, but obviously at a later stage that would be likely to be agreed by the council if the application is considered acceptable. And then Councillor Coley, the London plan does explicitly say that new residential development should be car-free. And so this application seeks to follow that. It does mention that there needs to be accessible parking. So this application would provide up to 10%, which is the policy requirement. The site has a PTEL rating of 2/3. So that is considered to be like a moderate level. At the site visit, it was noticed there are bus stops in close proximity, and there's a variety of buses which go to the site from Ealing Broadway or Greenford. The scheme has gone to TfL and they have reviewed it, and with that they haven't asked for any enhancement to the public transport network. We sometimes get requests for financial contributions, but in this case this wasn't considered to be necessary, and I guess that can also take on like the reduction in number of homes which is proposed of being like under 300. And Councillor Raza, your questions about local groups. So the scheme has been there has been like a sounding board for the scheme, and there's been a variety of external partners who have been advised on the scheme and who have provided comments. It's also gone before internal, And in terms of the biodiversity, that was independently assessed by Temple Group, who reviewed it and considered what was being proposed. And with that, that was considered to be more appropriate than, for example, the council's ecology officers looking at it and then reviewing it. So it needed to be independently assessed.
Okay, Councillor Raza, I just want to, Councillor, I don't think Councillor Coley's question about independent traffic consultants. I think we just use our own traffic.
Sorry, yes, that was independently assessed as well, because again, just because of the scrutiny of this application from Ealing Council, it wouldn't have been appropriate for an Ealing Council transport officer to review it by themselves. Yeah.
Councillor Raza, you're breaking the rules here.
I
by the
know,
way.
I'm sorry. It just came to me when we were talking about the transportation that we're very close to South Greenford Station, often touted as the least used station in the whole network. If there's is there anything that you think would be, it could be helpful towards this scheme to kind of link the two and make people use that station more than it's being used, and perhaps make the PTAL rating better?
I'm sure you're going to say yes, aren't you?
Yeah, yes. The scheme is also subject to travel plans, and that's obviously a good suggestion. So it would be to ensure that the travel plans build upon the use of local transport networks such as South Greenford, and encouraging that as well for the residential as well as the leisure centre.
And I'm sure it will help the viability of that train line going forward. That seems to be the end of questions. So I'm going to open it up for debate, and Councillor Kelly's got his hand firmly in the air here. So Councillor Kelly first, and anyone else, please keep your hands up and I'll put your names down. I'm not seeing hundreds of hands here.
Thank you, Chair. Lots of questions that sort of take us down some rabbit holes, but then it makes me think about some of the issues that have been raised. I mean, it's interesting to hear the difference between flooding, you know, everything floods, it's flooding everywhere, but there's such a thing as surface water, which is one form of flooding, and then there's other extremes. So having somebody that passes there regularly, all the time, swam there since the 1980s, it's never flooded in any extreme sense compared to anywhere else. I think the significant work to mitigate against flooding was done just after 1997, and the main works were done up by Costons Lane, where the Green Ford is. So I think that's no reason not to move forward. Thank you, Oliver, for your presentation. Not too many TLAs, as they call them. It was a nice a lot about the biodiversity net gain, which is very important. I think this is a real opportunity. Sort of the swimming pool sort of feels like it was just the original Gurnell feels like it was planted there. You know, a municipal edifice. We need a swimming pool. You know, when they closed the baths down behind here, and that came there. This seems to be a much more integrated thing. Obviously, residents, we need more housing now, and our idea of parkland and what the parkland offer is to residents is very different now to what it was in 40 years. And I think it's going to be really good news. I will see this as, if granted, as an extension of what's becoming the Perivale Park ground. What's the word? Regional park. Pear Tree Park, it's going to sort of enable that and enhance that. So that work in Stockdove Way is going to happen anyway, because Stockdove Way is where Pear Tree Park is. So we need to think of that as one project, you know, and it's about time Stockdove Way had a bit of investment, because it's very sort of underdeveloped or not well looked after. So this would be an opportunity to have that. And again, it will enable, Councillor Raz made a very good point about South Greenford Station. Wouldn't it be a good thing if South Greenford Station actually got some more trains, got some more passengers, and we say, well, the passengers will come because we've got a brand new leisure centre there. So I think these are really important considerations going forward. We always get it when we have a new development. Where's everyone going to park? You know, zero parking. Why do we have zero parking? You know, we can't continue to build residences with parking, because, and then people say, well, they're going to park across the road. Well, actually, that's what people were doing at Gurnell anyway. Gurnell car park was never ever full, because people used to park across the road anyway in Avalon Road 20 years ago, and they were parking in the estate, Gurnell Grove estate. I know Councillor Young didn't mention the estate, it was Avalon Road that he mentioned, but people were parking in Gurnell Grove all the time, and I'd done so myself. So, you know, rather than pay, I'd go and park in Gurnell Grove. So it was ever thus that people will try and park for free, and traffic management plans will iron that out. And, you know, CPZ reviews, we know how popular they are. So, you know, maybe we will have a CPZ review in time to come. So what we have there is a derelict building, a really derelict building. And I want to have a leisure centre there with a swimming pool at its focus, but nevertheless a leisure centre. So you can do more than swim, and this provides that. It provides parklands and the residents of homes. So, you know, it's a derelict site at the moment, and I think it will be a dereliction of my duty to not grant this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kelly, thank you. Councillor Young, you were next.
Thank you, Chairman. Our own report says that the proposed buildings are considered inappropriate development on metropolitan open land, and they should not be approved except in very special circumstances. It then goes on to list the community benefits. The trouble is that this development doesn't add a penny to the cost of developing the leisure centre. As the evaluation report says, the proposed scheme is not viable. The scheme produces a deficit equivalent to the costs of redeveloping the leisure centre and master plan works. In other words, if the residential component of this scheme were not built, it would cost us no more nor less to build the leisure centre. It doesn't add any value to it at all. Can I also expand on the CPZ, which my colleague here has highlighted? You can't enforce low car development or no car development unless you have parking controls in the surrounding streets. Now, Gurnell Grove has got parking controls. It's private land, and you can see the signs going as you drive in, saying that you'll get a ticket if you park there without permission. But the side roads and, funny enough, the main road are often unrestricted parking. Now, if you have a CPZ, it will affect things like the sports grounds along Scotch Common, which are fairly heavily parked on Saturdays and Sundays when people take their leisure. So there are knock-on effects on this development, apart from the damage to metropolitan open land, and the benefits are none whatsoever. If you build it or don't build it, the cost of refurbishing that leisure centre is the same to the council. We're wrong to build on metropolitan land just for the sake of doing so.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So thanks to the officers for the work that's gone into this. I mean, this has been a controversial site and proposals over a number of years now. I noted that the constraints, of course, of the metropolitan open land, the River Brent, considerations of nature and flooding, which I think have been well covered in the questions and the answers that we've had here this evening. Now, I do agree here with Councillor Young in the metropolitan open land, and the significant benefits is one of the key areas of this. Now, Councillor Young doesn't think that there's justifiable reason here. I take the contrary view to that, however. I think that this is actually this is a family leisure complex. It is not just a swimming pool. There is, you know, development on the open spaces. There is the BMX track that's on there. There's a skate park that's on there. This will bring families in and encourage activity for people, not just in Ealing, but I think also we have to consider wider and beyond Ealing. A 50-metre pool is very limited in the United Kingdom, never mind just in London. And I think the 50-metre pool will bring people in sort of from London and the surrounding areas, whether it's sort of swim clubs, sports clubs and so on. So I think we need to look at the broader strategic benefit here. The conservation areas, I note, is very positive, actually, a biodiversity net gain of 16%, which is good. And in terms of the flooding, I note the sort of the surface urban drainage proposals that are part of the changing some of the habitats and providing a greater biodiversity and wetlands areas in the green spaces. So with all that in mind, I am minded to support this because I think the benefits for the community and wider region far outweigh the negativity of developing a small portion of metropolitan open land.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Mahmood. Anyone else indicating to speak? Councillor Steve. Sorry, carry on, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for presenting that report. It is a very, like my colleague said, it's a bit controversial. Actually, the site designated two different terminology, like metropolitan open land and public open land. And when we are thinking the loss of metropolitan open land, which is less harm than the broader benefit, because I think, as far as I understand the whole designing, we are the proposed development is more likely to build on the hard surface, which is the part of the public open land rather than metropolitan open land. Yet there are some developments on the metropolitan land as well, but the major part of the new proposed development will be, in my opinion, will be public open land, or where the existing car park is at the moment. Yeah, and now we are experiencing the building built in 1988 or 89, and that building is not fit for purpose at all at the moment. So there are two options: either there will be no swimming pool or no leisure facility, or we need to do something about that. And we all know that the financial situation all local authorities are experiencing. So the enable and the related housing development will help this project to build state-of-the-art leisure center, and which is much, if you see the detail of the leisure center, which is much better than previous leisure center. It's like a sport complex, 10-lane, 50-meter pool, which is my Councillor Shah rightly said, it's very rare. Is a one. I think this is the fourth one in London. There is, there are no many 50-meter swimming pool in London. This is the fourth one. So the new landscape strategy makes the park and MOL more multifunctional and usable and welcoming members of the public from outside as well. And in terms of what this proposed development is recommending, the two outdoor facility outside of the leisure centre, which is very unique in London as well. One is BMX track, which is very popular. This is called a pump park. As far as this is the right terminology, officer, pump park. And the skate park, which is skate park, is already there, but it will be more bigger and more useful park. So these are the two good facility which we were missing for a long time. And in terms of, as far as I know, I think one thing is missing here about flood risk. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this proposed development will be having sustainable urban drainage system. If you look at the sustainable urban drainage system, this is integrated the landscape and network and enhance the wetland feature. So that could be the mitigating of the flood risk as well. So by looking all these things and the broader community benefits, if you see the proposal and see how many spaces, public spaces from the people, not the existing community, but the broader community can use to hire the hall in leisure center. There are proposed meeting rooms and community usable room are there where the external community can hire the halls as well. So this is the proposal. So I think in terms of looking all these things, and it's been nothing is happening on there for last 7 years or 6 years. So by looking all those benefits, I would urge committee to support that proposal, and I would be minded to support that application, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mahmood. I've got two more speakers, Councillor Steed, Councillor Martin. I'll urge them not to repeat what's already been said, if that's possible. We have had two lengthy speeches. It makes me wonder, should we have time limits on politicians as well, but never mind. Councillor Steed.
I will be very brief, Chair. I promise you. I think this is a really difficult call, actually. There are lots of reasons to oppose the application, be it the MOL element, the 35% affordable housing, the height. But at the same time, as Councillor Mahmood says, and the Councillor Kelly made reference to, it's been a derelict site for 6-7 years. And that derelict site is actually costing Ealing Council an awful lot of money to secure and keep it guarded and stuff. And there is a genuine wish that we would have a 50-meter pool. I know it becomes quite boring now, but it would be a huge asset to the borough. So on balance, and it's a tight call. I think on balance, I'd be inclined to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Steed. That was very brief and very to the point, succinct. Councillor Martin, by the way, it reminds me, the pool before was allegedly 50 metres, but I don't think it ever was quite 50 metres. It was just shy of 50 metres, so we could never use it. Pardon? I don't want to go there. Right, okay. Councillor, you can tell me afterwards, Councillor Young. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. So I'm not a swimmer myself. However, I do appreciate the 50-meter issue for other people. What I would say is I'm what I am very pleased about is the broader vision of the leisure centre, and the fact that it's now including activities that weren't there before. I did used to use it myself for the gym, and you know, these sort of publicly managed facilities are very important to a lot of people. I think particularly women. Gyms are sometimes hard places for women to go to and feel safe, and Gurnell always felt a safe place, and hopefully we'll retain that moving forward with the new design. But anyway, I'm very pleased about that. I do think sometimes these sorts of hybrid applications take away from the main parts. I mean, the main parts we're talking about today are the leisure centre and the parkland. I think they have both been very well designed and thought through. We've been talking about flooding, but it's nice to see that flooding has been positively included in it as well, in terms of wetland type environments, and we're thinking about that. And I'm sure we'll come back later and look in much more detail about the housing elements once we've got more meat on that one, and that might resolve some of the issues about liability, etc., which we don't know tonight anyway. So on that basis, I'm very minded to support.
Okay, I don't see anyone else indicating, so I'm just going to quickly sum up. As Councillor Steve would say, I have to. So really, what's in front of you tonight is, have we met the very special circumstances, which is the running theme throughout the report, for not only the leisure centre and the outdoor facilities, but as Councillor Martin said, the outline planning permission for the up to 300 homes going forward. And I get it's a balancing act in it. Most of the applications that come in front of committee of balancing acts, height and affordability levels kind of balance themselves out. So yeah, without further ado, I will put it to the vote. Right, all those in favour, please indicate. You okay? All those against? Just for, thank you. All, well, of course you can, yeah. And just for clarity, any abstentions? Councillor Young wants his vote recorded. By de facto, everyone else's is recorded as well. Yes, we'll have a 2-minute comfort break for people who want to get some top up on water or get rid of some. Right, thank you. Okay, we're all here. Councillor Steed has had to go, so we are, well, the Liberal Democrats are not represented now, but that's their choice. Okay, so as I said, we will go on to Oriel Drive next. Who's doing that? Is that you, John? Yeah. Okay, do you want to present?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. This application is to redevelop an industrial building to provide 3 large warehouse units within Greenford Industrial Estate beside the Grand Union Canal. And it's brought to the committee only because of the large amount of industrial floor space proposed. There's no objections to it. Here's the site. It's within a strategic industrial location with our other industrial units all around it. The proposal would provide 3 new units with over 13,000 square meters of B2 and B8 floor space, a 1/3 uplift of 3,245 square meters. Jobs on site would increase from an existing 60 or so to 277. There would also be 59 car parking spaces and 8 parking spaces for HGVs. Now, intensification of business uses on industrial land to provide additional industrial capacity through more efficient use of land and higher plot ratios is supported by London Plan policies. And this proposal would also provide a large contribution to provision of affordable workspace off-site. The proposed new units will be slightly higher than the existing unit and closer to the Grand Union Canal. However, they would have a much reduced length along the canal, and significant tree and hedgerow planting is proposed along this frontage. The existing building is poorly screened, detracts from the visual amenity along the canal, with quite a noisy open yard, and the proposed new landscaping buffer and tree planting combined with the new high quality facade and reorientation of the unit should improve visual amenity of the canal area. The Canal and Rivers Trust have raised no concerns on the scale and design of development, on its visual impact on the canal conservation area, and all the Trust's requested conditions to safeguard the canal have been applied. Although the site adjoins the canal conservation area, the benefits of the proposal, including provision of modern industrial buildings, creation of several hundred additional jobs, etc., are considered to outweigh any limited harm to the conservation area that may arise. There are no residential properties near the site which would be affected by it, and no objections from nearby occupiers. The increased scale of development and jobs will have some transport impacts, but these will be mitigated by Section 106 contributions of £64,000 towards improving walking links between the site and Greenford Station, helping to promote sustainable travel to and from the site. These include contributions towards Oriel Drive, Oldfield Lane North Junction improvements, and the Ockham Drive Oldfield Lane North Junction, and also underbridge lighting on the way. In terms of sustainability, the buildings will be all electric with no gas infrastructure on site and photovoltaic panels on the roofs. The development would be net zero carbon with CO2 emissions cut by at least 111% against London Plan targets. So there would be no shortfall against the zero carbon target and no carbon offset contribution required for the scheme. The site would have permeable hard standing so that surface water runoff would be reduced by 95% compared with the current situation. This wastewater would be mainly diverted to a sewer with some runoff to the canal via filters and attenuation processes, but subject to agreement with the Canal Trust. There is a condition that the drainage strategy has to be approved subject to consultation with the Trust, and we've had no objections from Thames Water on drainage issues. Most of the site is covered by buildings or hard standing and of negligible importance for biodiversity. But an area of scrub and trees adjoining the site along the Grand Canyon Canal can be improved, and there are various ecological measures, including planting of 23 new trees to be secured by conditions and Section 106 contributions, and there will be a net biodiversity gain of over 10%. So overall, the scheme will provide a number of planning and regeneration benefits, including a significant increase in modern employment floor space within a strategic industrial location, increased local jobs, and in the order of 610,000 in Section 106 and CIL contributions towards affordable workspace, employment training, highway infrastructure, tree planting, and landscaping and ecological improvements in the area. So in balance, the proposed development would accord the relevant policies and is recommended for conditional approval subject to a Section 106 legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We don't have any speakers on this one, and I'm going to throw it open for questions. And Councillor Raza, Councillor Rice, Councillor Mahmood, that's the order I've seen.
I just wanted to ask about the canal towpath bit. This section of canal towpath, for those of us who know it, is subjected to a lot of fly tipping, and we're constantly having to clear this bit, and it's usually done by community groups. So has any of this been sort of picked up on your report? And if not, can I suggest that it possibly go in as a condition, that it might be put in as part of Section 106 perhaps, to help keep this towpath clear? Because it does seem to be one of those problems which has a regular issue along this bit. Other than that, I think it's pretty good.
I'm going to explore this condition because I don't think there's anything in the report about fly tipping, and there's it's the Canals River Trust that run the towpath.
But we always end up having to clear it up.
Let me finish. No, I get your point, but it's not them that's making the application, so we can't condition the applicant who don't have the land on the canal towpath. I'm looking at our lawyer here to give me advice. I don't think we can condition someone who isn't the applicant, or excuse me, or the applicant, because the applicant isn't part of the land that I think you're mentioning, which is fly tipped, or is it within their land?
Well, it's a problem along the whole of the canal area. So the towpath is something that will bring stuff. And again, with the backing there, you'll find things in the hedges and all sorts of things. So this is a very, very, shall we say, heavily littered area, because if people like Lager Can don't stay on top of it, we end up with something that looks like a dustbin on a regular. So what I'm trying to shall we say, explore is it possible to have an element of a condition that might deal with this?
I'll pass over to the officers and the legal representatives, because I don't see it, but they might be able to have some way of doing it. I don't know.
I'm going to come in on that particular point. So just to be absolutely clear, the canal that you're referring to is outside of the red line, and you're also referring to fly tipping, which occurs along the entire towpath, so not necessarily isolated to the specific site. So I would suggest, and I would recommend to you, that it would be incredibly difficult to even consider, and following the tests that would be applied to, conditions, to think of something that would be reasonable. What we can do, obviously, as John has mentioned, the edge of the canal, which is quite different from the existing sort of car parking interface. So, there is landscaping which is being proposed, and I think we've already included a condition which will look at that. What we could do is think about, when we discharge those conditions, whether in discussions with the Canals River Trust, whether we are selecting the right type of species that would prevent some of the fly tipping occurring, or something along those lines. But I think anything else would be a bit difficult in this particular case.
Yeah, and we did, sorry, just to add to that, on the site visit, we did talk about, that maintaining their own part of the canal towpath, which is beyond the fence part. So, and that was discussed, and it's in the report. Is it conditioned? I think it is, in the sense that they will look after it and for in perpetuity.
Yeah, we had those discussions, but it was in relation to the other item, but the same sort of principle
applies.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that doesn't answer your question, but it kind of it sort of gets to the point, I think, really. Okay, all right. Sorry, Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. So if I could just ask about HGV movements, and especially thinking about the 92 bus route, as well as, of course, the cars along the road as well. So it does actually mention, as part of our own indications, that there'll be additional 30 movements in the peak direction and roughly 10 in the opposite direction. We're talking about south of Oriole Drive on Oldfield Lane. And even though it thinks it would dissipate quite quickly, those queues that would be formed, the TfL does raise the point of there being increase in HGV movement during peak periods and measures to mitigate that. What does concern me, as I mentioned about the 92 bus route, is that it can be a bus route where it gets stuck in a lot of traffic along the way, and it can take you a hell of a long time to get from one point to another, even though it's a short distance. But actually that stretch of road tends to be quite clear. So it does actually just seem a little bit concerning that there might be more development going on, which would increase the amount of traffic and would make sure that that bus route is even less reliable than it is now. So I just wondered about what really can be done to mitigate that in order to make sure that we don't end up with a lot more traffic, as seems to be anticipated here. And yeah, and just to see really what we can do about that. Thank you.
And just to be clear, that's when it's built, not when it's being built. You're talking about post-build, not the construction traffic.
Okay, thank you. Well, we got our the council's transport team looking at these points and to review the transport statement, including these number of HGV movements. Basically, they thought it would be difficult to do more than provide Section 106 or request Section 106 contributions to improve the two relevant junctions. I don't think they thought there was enough of a transport impact to do more than that, and that was their recommendation, that should be enough to mitigate these impacts.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose it'd be interesting. It's probably not. I don't know how much you can really say about that then on that case, but it just does interest me how if you can mitigate for that, because I don't know really. It doesn't matter how much money you put into something. It doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly the road is clear. But we'll just have to try and have some hope and faith in that. Thank you.
I suppose it wouldn't do their business any good having their lorries stuck in a queue. So they'd probably try and disperse the lorry movements throughout the day and maybe even to evening on, I don't know, 24/7. I don't know what this operation is, but I imagine if they start losing money because lorries are parked up, they'll move them as they can or will, hopefully. You don't get a 92 by any chance, do you?
Do I declare an interest?
No,
Okay,
no,
that's okay.
I was joshing really. Councillor Mahmood.
So, Chair, thank you, Chair. It's very difficult to ask the question if somebody next to that, but I'll try, yeah. Just a good news for Councillor Rice, as far as I understand that plan, is at the moment that the existing unit is run by one of the company called Pallet Waves, which is every 5 minutes, heavy vehicles coming out and going in. And after that development, the Pallet Waves will be saying goodbye to this site. So that's automatically heavy vehicle traffic will be reduced. This is just from my knowledge. My question is that the backside of this development, which is alongside the canal, and we were talking about too many things about river and trust, river, canal and trust. So there's only two recommendations. There are only two concerns they have got. The one, as your report is saying, don't put the heavy floodlights towards canal, and the install, there is a prevent to ecological harm. No external light should be installed. Have we considered that?
Okay,
Sorry.
share the mic between you.
I think we've got a condition to deal with external lighting, and that's going to be dealt with in consultation with the Canal Trust to make sure they're satisfied with it. That was a condition they requested, and we put that on.
Thank you.
I'm sure they did, yes. I've seen no further questions, and I don't see any indications of people being vociferously against this. So I'm wondering, shall I go straight to the vote for the committee? Okay, right. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Right. Just for clarity, all those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That one's carried. Agreed. Approved, whatever. Right, let's move on swiftly to Derby Road. It's yours. Yes. This exciting one.
The proposed development involves the demolition of existing buildings and the construction of 2 buildings, which collectively provide for 9,920 square metres of internal space. The site is located within a strategic industrial location, and the proposed use classes of EG3, B2 and B8 are wholly compliant uses as defined by policies E4, E5 and E7 of the London Plan. The design of the proposed buildings would allow for the maximum amount of flexibility to accommodate a wide variety of potential occupants. The buildings adopt a more conventional and contemporary form of development, greater internal floor and ceiling heights, and large open shell arrangements. The proposal will deliver more substantial logistics area between the 2 buildings. Significant benefit of the proposal is the improvements to the relationship between the site and the canal. The buildings will be set back significantly from the canal in comparison to the existing situation. This provides the opportunity to provide greater habitat, biodiversity and urban greening, as well as an improvement to the visual amenity area and new bicycle and active travel routes. The applicant has been working closely with the Canal and Rivers Trust to provide improvements to the towpath, bridge and accessibility between the 2. This is detailed within the draft heads of terms and also shown on the screen. This provides an opportunity for a new cycle pedestrian route that would wrap around the site, providing improved active travel infrastructure as mentioned. And here's an image of the Unit 1 from the bridge, the bridge that crosses the canal. Proposals for the first phase of redevelopment of Metropolitan Park, with the applicant intending to deliver wider regeneration of the area. All future phases would be subject to planning permission. However, the applicant has followed a plan-led process to ensure that all future development could work together in a cohesive manner. The high-quality design of the buildings will set a benchmark for future phases of the development. There will be a significant improvement in the sustainability of the buildings, with the proposal resulting in a 100% reduction in overall site-wide CO2 emissions, effectively net zero. It is considered the proposed development is wholly compliant with the development plan for the borough, and has recommended the application be approved, subject to conditions in a legal agreement, and I'll just refer the members to the briefing note, which provides some minor changes to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, I'm going to open up for questions. Councillor Rice, this is about 92 bus.
No.
Right.
No, I just want to express a few concerns and ask a little bit about the consultation that was done with the public. If you look at page 6, it says that there were no public comments that were received during the statutory consultation period, and this does actually just kind of raise alarms with me, because I know that people who live in the moorings, in the boats along there, do have a lot of problems when it comes down to pollution. It comes down to noise from the industry, which is just which is just so nearby to them. So I'm just amazed that they haven't really said very much. And then it just does say here about the public consultation. that there was a site notice. I mean, where was the site notice? I don't know. Was it really that visible? But also the consultation was from the 24th of July until the 14th of August. So we're talking about a time when a lot of people may have actually gone away and may not have seen any site notice, even if it was close to where they live. So I just want to make sure that we do a proper consultation of people who live in the area to make sure they're happy, because we don't need another list of complaints from people who are just suffering from noise and pollution. Thank you.
There is a chance they might have been liked the scheme because it moved it away from them a little bit as well. But yeah, we can ask officers, and site notices have a tendency to stay there a lot longer than they're meant to until Councillor Kelly comes along and takes them off. But yeah.
So it's probably just a grammatical error in the report. Multiple site notices were put around the area. It is a major scheme, and in all major schemes, we don't just put one site notice. There are multiple. The point was made that it is actually an improvement to that, and also the proposal is including 3-metre acoustic fences also, which aren't there currently. So it may just be that in this instance that no one had any concern with the proposal, but we're very confident, sorry, that we have done our duties in accordance with our requirements under consultation.
Councillor Mahmood, I hope this is a short, pithy one.
It's very short, Chair. But it's a very good network, and you're opening Bellevue Park, North Hall to Greenfoot. You mentioned cycle link. So if I'm cycling from Bellevue Park, I will cross the bridge, and instead of going to a path, I can come in the industrial park all the time and go to the Dalham Hill. Is that right? It will be not gated or anything.
So at the moment, the current arrangements, you can basically access the bridge down the stairs towards the current Bridport Road. That is open during the day and closed at night. There's an estate management team on site that do look after these sort of things. Now, there may be a gate there. It will be subject to secure by design assessment by the Metropolitan Police, but it's envisaged this will be the same arrangement in that this might be closed at night time and open during the day for access. It is private land after all. So it needs to be, we need to ensure that these spaces are secure.
Thank you, Joel. I see no more indications for questions, so I'm going to do the same as I did the previous application. Ask you, do you want to go straight to the vote? Okay, please indicate if you don't. Right, okay, I'm going to go straight to the vote. Okay, all those in favour, please indicate. Okay, just for clarity, all those against? Any abstentions? Right, the application has passed. Thank you, Joel. Right, we move on to the last one on the committee papers. Is what have we got? Right, okay. So we're going to the under the green, is it? It is units 418, 419 up to 21. Sorry, that's the wrong one.
19, the green.
It is the green, 13 to 19, the green Southall. John, okay. Do you want to introduce, please?
Thank you. Right. This application is to redevelop a vacant commercial site to provide student accommodation. And this is the site. It's a fairly small site and lies in the Southall Opportunity Area, just south of Southall Railway Station, junction of Hortus Road. The surrounding area has had major development in recent years, with permissions for large residential schemes in high buildings up to 23 stories. Now, this site has been to committee several times before, most recently in February 2024, when planning permission was given for a Part 23, Part 19 and Part 14 story building to provide 95 flats. The current proposal relates to a slightly expanded site and will provide a 23-story building of the same height and similar massing as the previous scheme, but without the 14 and 19-story shoulder elements, and this time to provide 424 student rooms instead of flats. The development would be car-free and have 329 cycle parking spaces. Communal indoor and outdoor amenity space is proposed at ground, first and second floor levels. This is how the two schemes compare. So similar heights, but different materials and form. It's worth noting that the development would be implemented using a modular construction approach, with much of the building elements manufactured off-site. This aims to greatly reduce build time, pollution, and HGVs on the site, with completion scheduled for the start of the academic year in September 2026. The proposed 424 student units would help to meet a shortage of purpose-built student accommodation in this part of London. It would also contribute to meeting local housing demands, since new student accommodation could free up existing dwellings currently being occupied by students due to a shortage of suitable accommodation for them. In addition, 35% of the proposed student units, or 148 rooms, would be affordable. A development of 23 stories would be a tall building on a site not identified for tall buildings. However, it does lie within the Southall Opportunity Area, which indicates potential for taller buildings, and a number of other taller buildings have been approved nearby. The site would also be the same as that approved from the site last year, the same as the approved buildings at King's House, and as this slide shows, the same as height as the nearby Archie's development on Merrick Road. The scheme was assessed against the London Plan Policy D9 criteria for tall buildings and the Ealing Housing Design Guidance, which set out various criteria for development, including tall buildings. And overall, the proposed building would accord with most of these design guidance criteria. The GLA has raised no objection to the site of building in this location, and it's been reviewed by the design review panel. So on balance, this tall building is considered acceptable on this site and in keeping with its surroundings. This is how it looks within the group of other tall buildings in this part of Southall. As in the previous scheme, the building would have a well-defined base, middle and crown, differentiated by different colours of brick, window sizes and decorative metal panels. An active frontage would be provided on the green. And overall, the scale of buildings and the design are considered to be of good quality and to complement other developments in this area. Given these will be student rooms, all will be single aspect units, but would have adequate living conditions in terms of floor space, layout, daylight, and visual outlook. The room sizes will be comparable with other student housing schemes approved in Ealing in the past. And the student rooms will be operated in accordance with the management plan submitted by the applicants, and a condition requires this. Internal amenity areas are proposed on the ground first, and an external communal area on the second floor. Given the constraints of this small site, there would still be an overall shortfall in amenity space, and this would be mitigated by Section 106 contribution towards improved provision in Southall Manor House grounds. The development will not have any significant impacts on the amenity and living or working conditions of adjoining occupiers due to its separation distances from nearby dwellings and the orientation of windows. Something like 11% of the site area would be provided as public realm space. This would provide widened pavements, green planting areas with new trees, benches and integrated street lighting to improve the public realm area to the scheme and the raised highway. New landscaping is proposed on both the green and Hottest Road frontages, while the existing retaining wall to the green would be retained to provide a robust buffer to traffic and associated noise. An urban greening factor of 0.4 would meet the London Plan target. This slide just shows the comparison between what it's like now and how the public realm area might look when this development is completed. In terms of heritage impacts. The heritage assessment with the application indicates it would have no greater visual impacts than the previously approved scheme and not cause any significant harm to nearby heritage assets, which are all some distance away from it. Any harm would be outweighed by the benefits of the proposal. In terms of sustainability, it would have high standards of design and construction and would be all electric, using communal air source heat pumps. Photovoltaic panels would be maximised across the roof. With these measures, the overall site-wide CO2 emissions will be cut by something like 13%. However, the predicted energy use intensity is 40% better than the GLA benchmark and 72% better for space heating, and the Council's energy advisor consider these indicate a well-designed building in sustainability terms. Any potential impacts with regard to air quality, noise, wind effects and land contamination can be adequately dealt by the conditions proposed. This is a car-free development. Transport Services and TfL have assessed its potential implications for the local highway network and considered acceptable, subject to financial contributions towards review of existing CPZs, junction improvements, bus stop and bus capacity improvements, improvements to local pedestrian and cycle infrastructure, and other factors. We've agreed Section 106 contributions for these measures. The site already has a good public transport accessibility, and with the conditions and planning applications agreed, including a restriction on resident parking permits, any potential impacts will be adequately mitigated. So overall, the scheme will provide a number of planning and regeneration benefits, including a large increase in the supply of student accommodation, 148 affordable student rooms, increased spending of local businesses from the students, and in the order of 1.6 million in Section 106 and SIL contributions towards infrastructure, community facilities, employment and training measures, and open space improvements in the area. So it's recommended for approval, subject to Section 106 and Section 278 legal agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So we have an objector to speak, which is Angela Fonzo, who's online. Angela, we will have 3 minutes, and I will let you know with 30 seconds to go, and we'll stop you as we do with everyone at 3 minutes. Angela, when you're ready, just indicate. And can we hear you first?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Okay, that's good. At least the tech is working. So when you're ready, start.
Okay, good evening, councillors. The previous owner of this site was told by the planning department that a planning application for single people's accommodation would be rejected as the need locally was for family homes. Why has planning recommended that this application should be granted? It is a high density plan with approximately 17.39 students per floor. Which university will this development be linked to? There are increasing social problems caused by the influx of overseas students in Southall without any increase in social and community infrastructure to support them. If there are no university residential advisors on site, the risk to safeguarding vulnerable students will be difficult, and almost certainly windows will need to be bolted shut to reduce the risk of students jumping to their deaths by suicide. There are no higher education institutions in Southall, so there is no need for student accommodation. Any such accommodation should be built either in Ealing, which has the University of West London, or in Uxbridge, which has Brunel University. This will benefit the students too, since they will be nearer to campuses, especially for female students who may not want to travel long distances to get back to their accommodation. There's been rapid expansion in the amount of housing around Southall railway station, but there's not been the equivalent increase in infrastructure. Deprivation indices already rank the Southall Green area as very bad for outside environment deprivation and barriers to services. Unless services and basic provisions such as increase in schools, GP practices, etc. are made available for the new developments already in place, there should be no further accommodation developed in this area. It is known that the GP practice planned for the gasworks site will have insufficient GPs from the outset. The current services already stretched to breaking point for existing residents. Ealing Hospital does not have a maternity ward. The GP practice on Beaksall Road closed down. Southall does not even have a supermarket, only small convenience stores. Congestion in this area is already horrendous, especially when driving through in the rush hour in the morning and evening. And if there is an increase in home deliveries, accessing Hortus Road via the Green, that is going to clog up an already congested area. The air quality is also terrible. This will only be made worse with an increase in population in this area. It is not suitable for student accommodation. We need family homes in Southall. Thank you.
Thank you. That's within the time. Thank you very much, Angela. We have, on terms of the applicant, it is Matthew Mainwaring. If you'd like to come forward. Matthew, have you used the mic here before? Because it can be. Oh, okay. As I say, at 30 seconds, I'll let you know. 30 seconds out, that is. And you have 3 minutes, and I will stop you at 3 minutes if you are still going. Okay, in your own time, please.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Matthew Mannering, and I'm the agent for the planning application. This site already has the benefit of planning permission for a 23-storey residential building, which was granted in February 2024. Despite this, the previous owner decided to dispose of the site, and Tide Construction, the applicant for this application, acquired the site in the spring of last year. This scheme brings forward a purpose-built student accommodation development with amenity and support facilities for the student. Although the London plan encourages such schemes to be located in locations well served by public transport, our understanding is that none of the significant residential planning permissions granted in Southall over the last 15 years have included any purpose-built student accommodation. This scheme will add to the mix of accommodation locally. The scheme also proposes to significantly improve public realm along the pedestrian routes fronting the Green, Merrick Road and Hortus Road. One of the important advantages of this application is that the site now includes the land at number 19 the Green, a site which was not part of the previous planning application. This allows the comprehensive completion of the corner urban block and forms a more complete design on the corner of the Green and Hortus Road. The design has been subject to significant design scrutiny by our officers, with a range of building forms being tested. This has ensured that the scheme before you this evening delivers the best design solution now that the land at number 19 the Green forms part of the site. The scheme does not exceed the height of the approved scheme. The scheme has been subject to wide-ranging public consultation, with nearly 3,000 homes and businesses consulted. The scheme has only received one written objection from a local resident. Overall, the scheme delivers new high-quality purpose-built student accommodation, with 35% of the accommodation fully adhering to the London Plan's fast-track approach for the delivery of affordable student accommodation. The scheme is also subject to Section 106 contributions totaling over 1.1 million, together with additional SIL payments, and wider economic benefits of £29.7 million of gross added value into the local economy during construction phases, and also £1.1 million per annum during the operational phase.
30 seconds.
The scheme is supported by the GLA, and we trust that the committee will be in a position to support the scheme this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Both within the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, right. Is there anything you would like to come back on at all, John?
Okay, I think there was a number of points raised by the objector. First one was about lack of family housing on the site. Well, it's quite a small site, and with a high-rise building, it's perhaps not easy to provide much in the way of family accommodation on a site like that with amenity space. There are also, of course, there's quite a lot of other large residential schemes very close to the site which do provide family housing. Obviously, we have to consider any application that's made to us, and student housing would widen the range of types of accommodation in this area, and where there are other approvals for family housing schemes. In In terms of which universities are going to use this, I think our understanding is that the universities don't necessarily indicate their interest until the scheme has planning permission. So I understand that no particular university has been identified yet, but that should probably come at a later stage. On the point about windows and students not being able to jump out of them. Right, okay, right, okay. In terms of infrastructure, well, there are quite a lot of Section 106 contributions to improve infrastructure around the site. And of course, the same applies to all the other major developments in this part of Southall, which will cumulatively improve infrastructure generally for the area. Students, of course, don't necessarily need the same type of infrastructure improvements as other residential schemes. They won't need schools, for example. So this actually changes the type of demands on infrastructure to some extent. In terms of supermarket provision, my understanding is there's going to be a new supermarket on Merrick Road in one of the new developments there. And of course, a lot of students nearby should support that. In terms of air quality improvements or worsening, well, the scheme is car-free. And of course, with modular construction, that should mean fewer HGVs and dust, etc. So I'd have thought it's fairly good and shouldn't necessarily worsen air quality to any great extent. So I think these were the main points I picked up.
I think you're right, John. That was the main points. Okay, right. I'm going to open up for questions. I'm going to go, right, Councillor Martin first, Councillor Bryce. I'm going to look across the table to no-shows. Right, okay. Councillor Martin.
So it's just a quick one, really. So,
right.
I note that there are 10% accessible units for wheelchair users. And I know it's quite close to Southall Station, so it's not the end of the world, but there's no parking. And I just wondered if any thought had been given to looking at some parking in the area that might be available for students with disabilities.
Yes, I think this is also a point that came up the last time this came to committee. I think the GLA wanted some blue badge parking near the site, and we agreed then that the council could convert 2 of the on-street parking bays on Hortus Road to provide wheelchair access by blue badge spaces at the applicant's expense. And of course, our transport section have also pointed out that disabled users can park in normal parking bays anyway. So I think overall that was the best compromise we could make on that.
Sorry, Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask about the waste management plan and the enforcement of that? I just raised my concerns because it does seem to talk about that there'd be a requirement for up to 63,000 litres for waste storage provision. But so there'll be actually a total capacity, what we provided is in the region of about 18,000 litres. So it does say there'll be roughly 3 collections per week. But I'm just wondering, is because especially since it says it be collected privately, how do we ensure that collections are made regularly enough to make sure that the storage area isn't overladen with rubbish that hasn't been collected? That just is a real concern because there really just isn't proper bin provision for that. And also TfL, even if they didn't make the point before, I think it's a case of they're making the point now that there'll be issues with waste collection vehicles getting into Hortus Road. And so if there is any potential for any issues of vehicles coming down, especially since we don't necessarily know what those vehicles look like being a private provider, you know, is there a problem that there maybe vehicles might not even manage to get down into those storage facilities and actually collect the rubbish? Thank you.
John, sorry, I thought you were going to say something necessary. Go on, John.
Rightio. Well, it's always quite difficult to estimate the amount of refuse and recycling volumes from a scheme because there's different ways of doing it. We come up with a range there, and given the number of bins and their capacity, with 3 collections a week, that seemed to be just about right, given that there's some leeway in the actual amounts to cope with that volume of waste. So we didn't really see any concerns with that, and we didn't get any adverse comments from our waste and street collection team on it. The point about the refuse collection vehicles, I mean, this was raised by TfL, although they didn't object to the previous scheme on it. I mean, my understanding is that refuse collection vehicles have been backing into Hortus Road to refuse collection for a long time, and this situation would just continue. We did explore other ways of dealing with it, and there was no obvious alternatives to this. And as far as I understand, there's been no accidents or any real issues with it. It seems to work quite well. And TfL didn't come up with any alternative ways of dealing with it. So I think we're satisfied that it should continue working as well as it had in the past.
Just for clarity, you mean our own vehicles that service the residents of Hortus Road? We use, vehicles going in there, backing down the road and servicing that road as such today. So, and they're quite large vehicles, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
I'm just trying to make sure that we're not, because what will service this is commercial waste, is it? Or would it be our own? I presume it's commercial. So, and they have various different sized vehicles. And for our own cost, we did have a problem with some large vehicles right at the beginning of a contract, which won't be mentioned anymore.
Can I just really clarify that there will be proper enforcement from our point of view, that we could ensure that rubbish was collected as regularly as it says here for 3 times a week, because if there is miscollections, then there's going to be huge issues, especially where it seems to be situated. I've got real worries about vermin, because will they be properly looked after, the students where they are? Thank you.
I was just going to point out that one of the conditions in the recommendation is also about student accommodation management plan, so it would be covered as part of that document as well.
Okay, any more questions, Councillor Kelly? Oh, I thought you put your hand up. Right, okay. Right, I've got a question, John, on the landscaping. You know the slide on landscaping, if you can get that up, please. I think I raised this before, the last one, unless I'm going doolally. No, it's the picture. Yeah, that one. The obviously that's public realm, isn't it? To the right of, sorry, the picture on the right, which is the computer image of what it will be looking like. My right, your right as well. Yeah. So on the right of that is public realm, which I'm presuming is our public realm. That there, I think I brought it up last time. I think the wall, maybe that area has been subject to antisocial behaviour down there, and I'm just seeing that wall as a sort of congregating point, a sitting point, almost a bench. And I'm pretty sure I brought it up at the last committee, saying if we could just take the wall away and just have lower shrubs there, it would just stop that element of standing or sitting or whatever. That's my view. But if that's in front of us tonight and that's what it is, then I'm just saying if we can take that away, maybe from here. I'm sure I said it before, but never mind. It is what it is. It's not the biggest deal, but I think it's just an improvement that could be made. It's kind of a statement really rather than a question. Don't need to respond. Okay, right. I'm going to open it up for debate. Councillor Kelly, that's why your hand up was up. Right, got it. Right, anyone else please indicate and I will take them in order.
Thank you very much for the application. It's my third time. The 3 times this has been on, I've sat, and the first time I knew it wouldn't probably proceed because of the number 19 not being part of the parcel. So I'm very pleased now that we're where we're at. I'm also quite excited with this new addition to the suite of buildings in Merrick Road, students' accommodation. I think it'd be a great opportunity to welcome people from all over the world and all over Britain, and locally, of course, if people want to live there, students. If you take somewhere like North Acton Station, where a couple of tower blocks came there, and now you've got this student accommodation, you've got this thriving, vibrant sort of, scene there, which never existed. So I think a student accommodation will really add to what is already a very vibrant area in Southall. A good design solution, much easier now, obviously, because of number 19 being included. I just, despite there being very little public space there, I think what we've done with it, even though there's a net loss, if we pass this, we're going to have a good offer in that area, nicely landscaped, notwithstanding the issue you just had with the flower bed. But again, it goes back to this thing about we've got a derelict site there. How long should we have a derelict site for? And this is a really good opportunity going forward. I'm excited about being modular, and I'm really excited to see the challenge. Despite it being modular, it's going to be a real challenge for them to get it going to September 2026. But I will certainly not hinder giving them that challenge. I'm very happy to grant this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Chair. I know the constraints that are on the site just from the size of it. I think this is my second go at this. I haven't had 3 goes like Councillor Kelly. And a lot of the same issues have been raised, and I think they are largely addressed. The GLA Stage 1 report raised a number of things, all of which have been addressed as the officer presented to us. Mitigations have been put in place. We did previously approve this at much the same height, and I know that the design actually as it sits now is actually a better design with the additional property coming onto the footprint of the site. So I will be supporting this.
Okay, I don't see any other, and just to add to that, I don't see any other indications, so I'll just finish off. And obviously the doorway, now the entrance has moved to much more an easier doorway to look at, to enter from. And yeah, I agree, the shop number 19 being acquired is not being part of this planning permission makes it stack up in my mind, and I've been there 3 times too. So just I hope I never go there again, is my view. And I'm glad to see that the timetable is to build it out by September 26, so that's good news. So we'll hopefully see some bricks in the ground, or whatever it is, spades in the ground very soon, if this is actually passed. So I will go to the vote on that point. So all those in favour, please indicate. All those against? No? You don't want your vote recorded, Councillor Young? No? Okay, just checking. All right. Although, any abstentions? Thank you. Sorry, that's passed, by the way. Okay, next committee is, someone tell me, it's in February. 5th of February. So hopefully it's a little bit warmer by then. But okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the officers for the presentations tonight. Thank you to the committee. And thank you to the members of the public. Thank you. Good night.